Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is Daily Drop number 223. Tonight's article is from the Toronto Sun. It was authored by Brad Hunter, and the headline, Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell should get the cops treatment. Crime has always been as American as apple pie. So is TV. In 1988, a new kind of show debuted on Fox that took viewers into the urban jungles where gutsy cops squared off against gun-wielding, dope-dealing savages intent on raping and killing, or so we were told. Now, I've never been a fan of the show Cops, right? It's always been a show that disproportionately targets poor people for petty crimes such as possession, etc., and I've never really been down with that. As if people's lives aren't hard enough, now you're going to show up with a camera crew and send these people to prison for possession of drugs? Yeah, I'm not going to watch a show like that and try and get some enjoyment out of other people's misery. Pass. Cops gave its fans a peek behind the tattered curtain of a world that was terrifyingly real for the people who lived in Watts, Bed-Stuy, and hundreds of other American ghettos. Honestly, folks, the way I grew up, I didn't need to watch Cops. Those episodes were happening in the neighborhoods I grew up in. So I've always had a different perspective than a lot of people on crimes such as these and shows such as Cops. I don't like the exploitation of the poor. It really bothers me. I don't find it as good quality, entertaining TV, and I would never, ever, ever watch shows like that, considering I've seen up close and personal just how hard it is for these poor people. Just how hard it is to maintain on a daily basis. Never mind having cops show up, kick in your door, break up your family, bring you to prison over a little bit of crack. Meanwhile, some rich dude gets pulled over with a bunch of powdered cocaine and old boy gets right off. I don't like the disparity, and when I talk about a two-tier justice system, folks, I mean it. I don't just mean in the case of Jeffrey Epstein, I mean in general. The two-tier justice system is such a draconian, outdated, disgusting way of doing things. And nobody feels the wrath more than poor people of all shapes, sizes, stripes, colors, and creeds. And we see it in the Jeffrey Epstein case. He didn't go after rich girls, right? He didn't go after the members of the golf clubs that he hung out in's daughters. No. What did he do? He went and looked for vulnerable girls from poorish backgrounds, lower middle class backgrounds that he could bring into his orbit and then exploit. And we see it with people who have money and power. They do it on a regular basis. They exploit the poor. What do you think? These payday loans, these payday loan shops that are in all these neighborhoods, that's a coincidence? Just more exploitation. And the show Cops was always exploiting people. And I was never a fan of it. So when I hear that this show is going by the wayside, I certainly didn't cry any tears. When it debuted, the U.S. homicide rate was soaring as crack wars turned inner-city corners into abattoirs. Look, unless you lived it, unless you lived through stuff like that, and you know what it was like to live in a poor neighborhood and see people losing their lives over things as petty as corners and spots to sell drugs off of, well, you don't really understand. It's just a movie to you. It's just a show on cops. But when you have lived that and you have been around it and you have been exposed to you, it's not just a show on cops. These are real people with real stories. And the people that are forced to live in these neighborhoods, it's bad news, right? It's a bad situation for all of these people who are forced to live in neighborhoods like this. And then you come in with shows like Cops, and it compounds the problem and makes it even worse. So yeah, I don't think shows like Cops have anything to offer us at this point in time. Paramount announced on Tuesday they were ending the show's long run, citing the temperament of the times as the reason. The weekly exploitation of small, wasted lives always had the underpinnings of racism. There was never any dramatic busts of white child molesters or Wall Street scoundrels. And It's true, right? All we ever saw was were poor people getting arrested on the show Cops. They never had an epic episode where they kicked in a door of one of these bankers and dragged him out for stealing our wealth and for pillaging our future. No, what did we see? A white guy in a wife beater in a trailer park, 5 dogs yapping, a kid half-dressed, and his wife sitting next to him getting hauled off for whatever petty crime they got him on. Or we see a black guy getting hemmed up in a place like South Central for basic possession. It's such a joke, and shows like that have and always will be a joke in my opinion. Jeffrey Epstein's alleged pimp, co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell and Prince Andrew would surely nod in approval. Law enforcement has always been wildly efficient in bringing in blacks, minorities, and poor whites for questioning on the flimsiest of excuses. Who gets an easier ride from Revenue Canada, a bank executive or you? He's not wrong about this either. How often do I talk about poor people being abused by the system? It is a huge part of the Jeffrey Epstein case. It is a huge part of what occurred. Because if these girls came from affluent backgrounds, none of this would have happened to them. And it's just a fact, folks, right? We have to open our eyes, and we have to understand that there are some hard truths that we need to swallow if we're ever going to fix what is wrong. And everybody needs to look in the mirror and do a bit of self-reflection. Because what we see right now, the environment that we see right now, it's not good. It is not good for anyone. Prince Andrew is now doubling down by having pals go to the Daily Mail and claim U.S. prosecutors have made it impossible for him to help them. In fact, the heroic prince is utterly bewildered. Yep, we know that Prince Andrew is an absolute liar. And we know that people like Prince Andrew especially would never end up on a show like Cops, right? It's only for poor people. Imagine an episode of Cops where they kick in the door to whatever hole in the ground Ghislaine Maxwell is hiding in and drag her out, put her in cuffs, and embarrass her on TV. Wouldn't that be nice? And if anyone deserves to be ripped out of a hidey hole, out of a cubby hole, out of a safe house, it's Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, don't get me wrong, folks. I'm not saying that, the cops shouldn't police, poor areas, poor communities, but what they shouldn't do is use the fact that people are poor as a premise to give them probable cause. And if you don't think it happens, you might want to leave suburbia sometimes, because I've seen it with my own eyes. And this isn't a condemnation of all police officers, by the way, but it's a condemnation of a show like The Cops that is exploitive as hell. One of Epstein's survivors, Virginia Roberts, has claimed she had underage sex with the sweaty prince on 3 occasions. He has denied wrongdoing, but despite his close ties with serial child molester Epstein, doesn't appear willing to clear the air. Imagine a poor person in the same position having the ability that Andrew does to kill time and to waste time and to not answer questions. If it was you or me or any other poor person, we would have been dragged in already by the SWAT team. But under the 2-tier justice system, there's a set of rules for them and then a set of rules for the rest of us. Andrew wants control of the narrative, and U.S. officials say he has repeatedly declined requests to be interviewed and has unequivocally refused to talk. I think Prince Andrew, at this point, has very little credibility, said famed lawyer Gloria Allred, who represents some of Epstein's survivors. Well, if anybody knows about having no credibility, it would certainly be Gloria Allred, right? Because she has zero credibility as far as I'm concerned. And if I had my druthers, she would be nowhere near this case. Because what she does, she erodes the credibility of it, in my opinion. And I have a lot of suspicion about what he is saying through his representatives. Now, the U.S. Department of Justice is engaging in its own game of chicken by asking the Brits to formally interview Andrew. And get this, the petulant prince said he's being treated like a second-class citizen. Savor that ridiculous statement for a moment. Not only savor it, put it in your pipe and smoke it. Because this man acting like he is a second-class citizen when his whole entire life he has looked down his nose at the rest of us and furthermore abused, disenfranchised women and people. He has the audacity to say he is a second-class citizen. I have news for you, Joe Exotic of the Windsor family. Nobody cares what you have to say. Nobody's listening. And certainly nobody believes you. Likewise, his old school chum, Bill Clinton's guma, Ghislaine Maxwell, who has been evading detectives for almost a year. The daughter of disgraced publishing baron Robert the Bouncing Check Maxwell, for nearly 25 years she was closer than this with Epstein. Scores of young women who were sex trafficked have pointed the finger at the brunette, claiming she orchestrated and sometimes participated in the sexual abuse of many. Now, Bill Clinton's mistress here is up to her neck in all of this. We all know that, right? So if you're just listening for the first time, maybe you're just getting involved in the case, well, Ghislaine Maxwell is target numero uno, in my opinion. With Epstein dead, she is the gem catch for the prosecution. You want to talk about big game hunting? She is it. And Ghislaine Maxwell has been playing the victim for far too long at this point, going so far as to try and sue the estate of Epstein to provide her with monetary defense. Neither the prince nor Maxwell have been charged, but since Epstein pegged out in a Manhattan jail cell last year, he has been sent just once and is said to be he has been seen just once and is said to be in hiding with the help of her high-crust friends. Yeah, well, we know that. We know that Ghislaine Maxwell is definitely in hiding. She's keeping her head down. Where she is, I have no idea. But I will tell you this. The walls are closing in. And as her associates start to fall off the map one by one, she's going to have to get even more paranoid. Because the more people that are wrapped up, the more people that are facing RICO indictments, well, the more chance she has at getting caught up and the more exposure she faces. Another new Epstein documentary claims the 58-year-old had no qualms about procuring girls for Epstein to quench his incredible sex drive. He has to have 3 orgasms a day, so I help him out by bringing in the females. Former friend Christina Oxenberg quotes Maxwell in the Who Killed Jeffrey Epstein documentary. She felt no compunction about telling me this. If anything, she was proud. And we know she talked about going to pick up nubiles at Central Park. We know all of the accounts of Maria Farmer. So we know that Ghislaine Maxwell was up to this in her neck. And the fact that she is not arrested, the fact that there hasn't been an episode of cops tracking her down, is just absolutely repugnant. If Cops had a farewell episode, it would be nice to see Prince Andrew and Ghislaine Maxwell featured. It wouldn't be the first time the show named and shamed people whose only crime was being at the wrong place at the wrong time. Utterly humiliated, slammed against a cruiser, jumpy cameras capturing every grimace, every utterance, each and every glance framed to make the arrested appear sinister and lower than common. That's a pretty good, scathing piece by Mr. Brad Hunter of the Toronto Sun. I like the way that he used the show Cops to juxtapose his position, and I really, really, really like the way he thinks if there was ever a going away episode, it should be focused on Maxwell and Joe Exotic of the Windsor family. Now, we know that would never happen, obviously, but it's nice to dream. So, what we see here, folks, is more movement and more people being enraged about what they saw on Filthy Rich. Like it or not, Filthy Rich as a platform, Filthy Rich as a documentary, used the platform that Netflix provided it it was perfect, right? The way that they used it. Because what it did was it gave more exposure to people who might not have ever known anything about this case besides the little bit that the legacy media reported. So in that facet, when we see articles like this from people like Brad Hunter over at the Toronto Sun and some of the other articles that we have seen lately, well, we know one thing is for sure. We know that interest in this case is ticking up, and time for people like Ghislaine Maxwell, Prince Andrew, Glenn Dubin, And everybody else, well, time for them is running out. If you'd like to contact me, you could do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. All right, everybody, we'll be back tomorrow and we'll do it all over again. I hope you all had an amazing Wednesday.